A silver Bentley on the side of Highway 42, steam rising from under the hood like smoke signals of defeat. Marcus Wellington hadn't called for help in 20 years. He solved problems with phone calls, not dirty hands. But his phone had no signal. His driver was in another city, and the nearest town looked like it had been forgotten by progress itself. Love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The sun was setting behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Marcus loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves, and started walking toward the cluster of weathered buildings ahead. His Italian leather shoes weren't made for gravel roads. Pride had limits, and his car breaking down had reached them. The first sign of life he found was a garage. Not the kind with glass walls and marble floors. This one had oil stains on concrete, tools hanging from pegboards, and the honest smell of hard work. A hand-painted sign read Miller's Auto Repair since 1987. No corporate fonts, no marketing polish, just truth in faded blue letters. He pushed open the heavy door. The bell above it didn't chime. It clanked, rusty and tired. Inside, classic. Rock played softly from a radio covered in dust. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in harsh, practical light. This wasn't his world of boardrooms and crystal chandeliers. "We're closed," came a voice from under the hood of an old pickup truck. Marcus cleared his throat. "I'm sorry to bother you, but my car broke down about a mile up the road." The voice paused. Then a young woman emerged, wiping her hands on a rag that had seen better decades. Her coveralls were too big, rolled up at the sleeves and ankles. Dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and there was a streak of grease across her cheek that she didn't seem to notice. "What kind of car?" she asked, not looking at his expensive suit or polished shoes. "A Bentley Continental." She raised an eyebrow. "Fancy. What's wrong with it?" "Steam coming from the engine. It just ... stopped." She studied his face for a moment, then grabbed a toolbox from the workbench. "I'm Riley Miller. My dad owns this place, but he's at the hospital with my mom tonight. I can take a look." Marcus hesitated. He was used to certified technicians, service advisors, people in clean uniforms who spoke in careful, professional tones. This girl couldn't be more than 25, and she looked like she'd been wrestling with engines all day. "I don't want to impose," he said. Riley was already walking toward the door. "Mister, it's getting dark, and the nearest fancy dealership is 3 hours away. You want to wait until tomorrow and pay for a tow truck, or do you want me to fix your car tonight?" There was something in her voice, not arrogance, just quiet confidence. It's the kind that came from knowing exactly what you could do and not needing to prove it to anyone. "All right," Marcus said. "Lead the way." They walked back to his car in comfortable silence. The Bentley looked even more out of place against the rural backdrop, like a piece of jewelry dropped in a cornfield. Riley popped the hood without ceremony and leaned in, her hands moving with practiced precision. "Coolant leak," she said after a minute. "Looks like your radiator hose gave up." "When's the last time you had this serviced?" Marcus realized he had no idea. I ... have people who handle that." She glanced at him, not judgmental, just curious. "People who handle car maintenance, people who handle everything." Riley nodded like that made perfect sense, then returned to the engine. "Well, your people missed this one. The hose is cracked and your coolant reservoir is bone dry. Lucky you didn't blow the engine." She worked quietly, her movements economical. And sure, Marcus found himself watching not just what she was doing, but how she did it with a kind of focused attention he rarely saw anymore. In his world, people multitasked, checked phones, divided their attention among 12 different priorities. This girl gave the broken car her complete presence. "You don't talk much while you work," he observed. "Cars don't like to be rushed," she said, without looking up. "They tell you what's wrong, but only if you listen." Something about that landed differently than he expected. Marcus had spent the last 5 years surrounded by people who talked constantly: presentations, conference, calls, networking events where silence was treated like failure. But standing here in the growing darkness, watching someone actually listen to something that needed fixing, he realized he'd forgotten what that looked like. "There," Riley said, straightening up. "Try starting it now." The engine turned over. smoothly, purring like it had never been broken at all. Marcus stared at the dashboard, then at Riley, who was closing the hood with satisfaction. "How much do I owe you?" he asked. $20 for the hose, no charge for the labor. That's not enough." Riley shrugged. "It's what it costs." Marcus pulled out his wallet and handed her a $100 bill. "Keep the change." She looked. At the money, then at him. "I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's payment for work well done." She hesitated, then folded the bill and tucked it into her pocket. "Thank you." They stood there for a moment, two people from completely different worlds, connected by something as simple as a broken radiator hose. Marcus realized he didn't want to leave yet. "Is there a diner or somewhere to get coffee around here?" asked. Riley pointed down the road. "Murphy's stays open until 10. Best pie in 3 counties. Would you... Marcus paused, unsure why he was asking. "Would you like to join me? My way of saying thanks?" She studied his face in the dim light from his headlights. "You sure you want to be seen with someone who smells like motor oil?" Marcus looked down at his own hands, now smudged with grease from helping her with the toolbox. "I think I'll fit right in." Murphy's Diner was exactly what Marcus expected, and nothing like what he was used to. Red vinyl booths, checkered linoleum floors, and a coffee pot that looked like it had been percolating since the Carter administration. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and sensible shoes, waved at Riley like she was family. "Hey, sweetheart, your usual booth? Thanks, Mrs. Chen." Riley slid into the corner booth and Marcus followed. The vinyl creaked under him, and the table wobbled slightly, but something about the imperfection felt honest. Mrs. Chen brought them coffee without being asked thick, black and strong, enough to wake the dead. Marcus wrapped his hands around the mug and realized he couldn't remember the last time he'd had coffee that wasn't served in bone china or a branded paper cup. "So," Riley said, adding 3 sugars to her coffee, "what do you do when you're not getting stranded on country roads?" Marcus hesitated. In his world, that question was always loaded. People wanted to know how much money he made, what connections he had, how he could help them. But Riley asked it the way someone might ask about the weather. "I run a company," he said. "Investment consulting. Sounds important. It pays the bills." She laughed. "Must be some bills if you drive a Bentley." Marcus found himself smiling. "What about you?" "Always wanted to be a mechanic." Riley's expression shifted, became more thoughtful. "My dad taught me. Started when I was 8, handing him tools, learning the names of parts. He said cars were honest, they broke when something was wrong, and they ran when you fixed them. Right, no politics, no games. And now..." She stirred her coffee slowly. "Now he's got arthritis in his hands and Mom's been sick. Someone has to keep the shop running. That's a lot of responsibility. It's family." She said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "What about you, family business?" Marcus's hand tightened slightly around his mug. "No, I built the company myself." "Parents proud?" The question hit harder than it should have. Marcus thought about his parents, his father, who'd died believing his son cared more about money than people, and his mother, who'd passed away while he was in a merger meeting he'd refused to leave. "They're both gone," he said quietly. "I'm sorry." Riley's voice carried genuine sympathy, not the practiced condolences he was used to. "Recently, my mother, 3 years ago. Dad's been gone for 5. Were you close?" Marcus considered lying, giving the expected answer. Instead, he found himself telling the truth. "No. I thought there would be more time to fix that. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off, ... Riley nodded like she understood something he hadn't said. "Time's funny. You think you have all of it until you realize how little you actually get." They sat in comfortable silence, to people who'd found themselves sharing more than they'd planned with a stranger. Mrs. Chen appeared with slices of apple pie thick, golden, with a crust that looked homemade.
"Oh."
On the house, she said, "Anyone who keeps Riley company on a long day deserves pie." Marcus took a bite and closed his eyes. It tasted like childhood memories he'd forgotten he had Sunday afternoons, his grandmother's kitchen, the smell of cinnamon and love baked together. Good? Riley asked. It's perfect. Mrs. Chen's been making that pie since before I was born. Same recipe, same love. That's what makes it work. You sound like you know something about that. Riley shrugged. When you fix things for a living, you learn that the best repairs aren't just about replacing parts. It's about understanding what something was meant to be and helping it remember. Marcus looked at Horelli. There was something about the way she moved through the world, present and unhurried, that made him want to slow down. In his life, everything was urgent. Everything was a crisis. Everything demanded immediate attention. But sitting here, eating homemade pie with a girl who fixed cars and spoke about them like they had souls, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Can I ask you something? Riley said. Sure, you seem lonely. Not lonely. Like you're surrounded by people, but not really connected to any of them. Marcus set down his fork. No one had ever said that to him so directly. What makes you think that? The way you asked me to coffee? Not like someone who's used to having? People say yes. She was right, and they both knew it. Marcus had money, power, influence. He had business associates, employees, acquaintances, but friends. People who cared about him rather than what he could do for them. The list was shorter than he wanted to admit. I used to have a brother, he said suddenly. Riley waited. Twin. Brother Danny. He was everything I'm not, is going, funny, good with people. He used to say, I was so busy climbing ladders, I forgot to notice who was standing next to me. What happened to him? Car accident. 7 years ago. Marcus's voice was steady, but his hands weren't. He was coming to see me. I'd canceled on him twice that month for work meetings. Marcus. Riley's voice was soft. That wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? He met her eyes. He died driving to patch things up with a brother who was too busy to make time for him. Riley reached across the table and touched his hand briefly. Just a moment of contact, but it steadied something in him. Guilt's like a broken engine, she said. It'll eat you from the inside if you don't fix it properly. But beating yourself up isn't repair work, it's just more damage. They talked until Mrs. Chen started stacking chairs on tables. About small towns and big cities, about the weight of expectations and the courage it took to disappoint people. Who wanted you to be someone you weren't? About Danny's laugh and Riley's dreams of maybe going to engineering school someday. If she could figure out how to manage it without abandoning her family, when they finally stepped outside the night. Air was cool and filled with the sound of crickets. Marcus realized he didn't want this to end. Would it be all right if I came back sometime? He asked. Maybe when your dad's feeling better? I'd like to meet him. Riley smiled. He'd like that. Fair warning, he'll want to lecture you about proper car maintenance. I could use a good lecture. She laughed. Most of us can. Marcus got back in his Bentley, but before he drove away, he rolled down the window. Riley? Yeah, thank you. Not just for fixing the car. She nodded, understanding. Drive safe, Marcus. As he drove back toward the city, Marcus found himself thinking not about the merger he had to review or the conference call scheduled for tomorrow morning. Instead, he thought about honest work, homemade pie, and a girl who fixed broken things, including him. 3 weeks later, Marcus returned. Not because his car broke down, he'd had it serviced twice since that night, but because something else needed fixing, something that couldn't be diagnosed with tools or parts manuals. Miller's Auto Repair looked different in daylight. The building was older than he'd realized, paint peeling in spots, the parking lot cracked with weeds growing through the asphalt. But there was life here, cars in various stages of repair, the sound of air tools and classic rock, the honest smell of work. Being done, he found Riley under the hood of a station wagon, her father beside her. Tom Miller was a man in his 60s, gray-haired and careful in his movements, but his eyes were sharp and kind. So you're the Bentley man, Tom said, extending a hand stained with decades of honest work. Riley told me about you. All good things. I hope. Tom chuckled. She said you were polite and over-tipped around here. that makes you practically royalty. They talked while Riley worked. Tom had been a mechanic for 40 years, had built this business from nothing, and had watched the town slowly empty as young people left for bigger opportunities. His wife Sarah was battling cancer, and the medical bills were mounting. We're proud people who'd never asked for help, but Marcus could read between the lines. "Dad," Riley said, emerging from under the hood, "I need to run to the parts store. Mind if Marcus keeps you company?" After she left, Tom's demeanor shifted slightly. "You seem like a decent man, so I'm going to be straight with you. My daughter's special, smart as a whip, heart bigger than this whole town. If you're just passing through, looking for some adventure with a small-town girl, I'd appreciate it if you kept driving." "I'm not looking for adventure, Mr. Miller. I'm looking for something real." Tom studied. His face. "What do you do for work, son?" "I help people invest money, build wealth, make much at it, more than I know what to do with." Tom nodded slowly. "Money's a tool, like a wrench or a screwdriver. Useful if you know how to use it right. Dangerous if you don't." When Riley returned, she found them discussing the intricacies of small-block Chevy engines. Marcus was asking questions like someone genuinely interested in learning, not just making conversation. Over the following months, Marcus became a regular fixture at Miller's Auto Repair. He learned to change oil, replace brake pads, and diagnose mysterious rattling sounds. His hands got dirty, his suits got stained, his phone calls got shorter. Because he was too busy listening to Riley explain the difference between a timing belt and a serpentine belt, he also learned about the town, how the factory closure had hurt families, how young people were leaving because there weren't opportunities, how businesses were struggling to survive. He saw the potential in the place, the good bones underneath the economic hardship. One evening, as they worked side by side on a stubborn transmission, Riley asked, "What are you really doing here, Marcus?" He paused, wrench in hand. Learning. "What?" "How to be useful. How to fix things that matter." She smiled. "You could fix things in the city. Probably make more money doing it. Money isn't the problem I need to solve." That night, Marcus made a decision that would have shocked his business associates. He bought the old factory building on the edge of town, not to tear it down or flip it for profit, but to transform it into something the community needed: a technical training center, a place where young people could learn skilled trades, automotive repair, electrical work without having to leave their hometown to find their future. When he told Riley about his plan over coffee at Murphy's Diner, she was quiet for a long time. "That's a big project," she said finally. "I've done big projects before, not like this. This isn't about making money, it's about making a difference. What if it doesn't work?" Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "What if it does?" Miller Technical Center opened 18 months later. Raleigh had her engineering degree by then, earned through night classes Marcus had quietly funded. She became the head instructor, teaching young people not just how to fix engines, how to solve problems, how to think critically, how to find pride in work well done. Tom Miller recovered enough to teach part-time, sharing for decades of hard-earned wisdom with students who hung on his every word. Sarah Miller, cancer-free for 6 months, ran the front office and made sure everyone who walked through the doors felt welcome. Marcus moved to town permanently, not to a mansion on the hill, but to a simple house 3 blocks from the auto shop. He learned to make coffee in a regular coffee pot, to eat dinner at the kitchen table instead of his desk, to have conversations that weren't about profit margins or market trends. He and Riley were married on a Saturday afternoon in the workshop, where they'd first met, surrounded by friends who smelled like motor oil and love. Mrs. Chen made the wedding cake. Tom Miller walked Riley down an aisle lined with classic cars. During the reception, as Marcus watched Riley laugh with her students, he felt a tap on his shoulder. An elderly man with calloused hands and kind eyes extended his palm. "I'm Bill Murphy, from Murphy's Diner. My grandson Jake is in Riley's first welding class." Marcus shook his hand. "How's he doing?" "Good. Real good. That's not why I wanted to talk to you." Bill paused. "Wanted to say thank you. Not just for the school, but for seeing what this place could be instead of what it was." I didn't do anything special, Bill smiled. Son, you fixed something that was broken, not just cars people. That's about as special as it gets. Later that evening, as the reception wound down, Marcus and Riley sat on the porch of their new home, watching fireflies dance in the summer air. Riley was still in her wedding dress, now with a few grease stains from hugging her students.
Amy.
Regrets? She asked. Marcus thought about his old life, the corner office, the constant stress, the endless pursuit of more money, more success, more recognition. Then he looked at Riley, at the town that had welcomed him, at the future they were building together. Just one, he said. What's that? I wish Danny could have met you. Riley squeezed his hand. Maybe he's why your car broke down that night. Marcus smiled. He always did have perfect timing. The next morning, they found a note taped to the door of the technical center. It was from Jake Murphy, written in the careful handwriting of someone still learning to express himself. Thank you for teaching me that broken things can be made new, and that fixing something is just another way of saying you believe it's worth saving. Marcus and Riley kept that note on the workshop wall, a reminder of why they did what they did. Because everyone deserves to feel useful. Everyone deserves to feel valued. Everyone deserves someone who believes they're worth saving. And sometimes, all it takes is someone willing to get their hands dirty and do the work. 2 months after the technical center opened, Marcus sat in his home office, a converted bedroom that was nothing like his old corporate suite. Oh, the walls were lined with automotive manuals instead of business journals. And Riley's engineering textbooks shared shelf space with his investment guides. His phone buzzed. The caller ID showed a number he recognized but hadn't seen in over a year. His former business partner, David Chen. Marcus. Geez, I've been trying to reach you for months. Where the hell have you been? I'm exactly where I need to be, David. Look, I don't know what midlife crisis you're having, but the Henderson merger is falling apart without you. They're offering double your usual fee if you come back and close this deal. Marcus looked out his window at the technical center across town. Students were arriving for the evening welding class, their headlights cutting through the autumn dusk. I'm not available. Not available. Marcus, this is $12 million we're talking about. I know exactly what we're talking about, David. And my answer is no. This is insane. You're throwing away everything you've built for what? Playing mechanic in some nowhere town? Marcus felt something he hadn't expected. Not anger, but pity. David, when's the last time you went home and weren't thinking about work? Silence. When's the last time you helped someone without calculating what you'd get in return? More silence. I'm not throwing away what I built. I'm finally building something that matters. After he hung up, Riley found him still sitting by the window. Everything okay? She asked, settling into the chair beside him. Better than okay. Marcus reached for her hand. Someone just reminded me how far I've come. Jeremy Walsh was 17, angry and convinced he was stupid. He'd been kicked out of 3 high schools and was one mistake away from juvenile detention. When the court ordered community service at the Miller Technical Center, I don't want to be here, he told Riley on his first day, arms crossed, defiance radiating from every pore. That's fine, Riley said, handing him a pair of safety glasses. Want doesn't have much to do with need. For 2 weeks, Jeremy showed up late, did the minimum work required, and made it clear he thought everyone there was wasting his time. Then Marcus assigned him to work on a project that had been sitting in the corner, 1967 Camaro that had been donated in pieces. This thing's junk, Jeremy said, kicking at the rusted frame. Probably, Marcus agreed. But what if it's not? Something about that question got under Jeremy's skin. He started staying after hours, researching parts, watching YouTube videos about restoration. Slowly, the anger gave way to curiosity, then to something resembling pride. 3 months later, when the Camaro's engine turned over for the first time, Jeremy broke down and cried. It's not from embarrassment, but from the realization that he'd built something beautiful with his own hands. I've never finished anything before, he told Marcus that day. Well, Marcus said, now you know you can. Jeremy graduated from the program 6 months later and immediately enrolled in the Advanced Automotive Technology course. He's now the center's youngest certified instructor, specializing in classic car restoration. The Miller Technical Center's success hadn't gone unnoticed. Property values were rising, new businesses were opening, and young people were staying in town instead of leaving for opportunities elsewhere. But not everyone was happy about the changes. At the monthly town council meeting, Marcus found himself facing questions from longtime residents who weren't sure about the outsider, who'd bought their failing factory and turned it into something they didn't quite understand. "Mr. Wellington," said Councilwoman Patricia Hayes, "your school is bringing in students from other counties. Our resources are stretched thin already." "The center is entirely self-funded," Marcus replied calmly. "We're not taking resources, adding them. But what about the character of our town? We've been the same for 50 years. Riley stood up from the back of the room. "Mrs. Hayes, 50 years ago, this town had jobs, hope, and a future. Young people didn't leave because they wanted to, they left because they had to. Now they have a reason to stay." An elderly man named Frank Rodriguez raised his hand. "My nephew Carlos graduated from the welding program last month, got hired immediately by the wind farm project over in Mason County. Good wages, benefits, pension. That boy was headed nowhere fast before he found that place." One by one, other residents stood up with their own stories. Parents whose children had found direction, business owners whose shops were busier because more young people had steady jobs, teachers who'd seen former dropouts return to finish their high school diplomas. The vote to support the technical center's expansion passed unanimously on their first wedding anniversary. Riley surprised Marcus by taking him back to the exact spot where his Bentley had broken down. She'd had the State Highway Department install a small brown sign, "Miller Technical Center -2 miles. So everyone who breaks down here knows where to find help," she explained. Marcus laughed, then grew serious. "You know what I realized?" "What's that?" "Spent years thinking success meant never needing anybody. Turns out it's the opposite." Riley kissed him softly. "Good thing your car broke down. Best malfunction I ever had." As they drove home past fields dotted with fireflies, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Jeremy Walsh. "Mr. W., the 67 Camaro. Just won first place at the county car show. Thought you'd want to know that broken things can be made better than new." Marcus showed Riley the message, and she smiled. "He's right, you know." "About what?" "Broken things. Sometimes they come back, stronger than they ever were before." Marcus looked at his wife, at the town lights twinkling ahead of them, at the life they'd built from the pieces of who they used to be. "Yeah," he said. "Sometimes they do." 5 years after the technical center opened, while cleaning out Tom Miller's old desk, Riley found an envelope marked for the man with the Bentley in her father's careful handwriting. Inside was a letter dated the day after. "Marcus first came to the shop. Riley showed me the $100 bill you gave her tonight. She thinks you were just being generous, but I recognize something else when I see it. Loneliness has a particular weight to it, and you were carrying more than your share. I don't know what brought you to our little corner of nowhere, but I suspect it wasn't just car trouble. Sometimes the universe breaks our machines so it can fix our hearts. Take care of my daughter. She sees the best in broken things, which means she probably sees something good in you that you've forgotten was there. If you're reading this, it means things worked out the way they were supposed to. Welcome." To the family, Tom Miller Riley found Marcus in the workshop, teaching a group of new students how to properly torque lug nuts. She handed him the letter without explanation. When he finished reading, Marcus had to sit down. He knew, Marcus said quietly. "Dad always did have good instincts about people." Marcus shook his head. "Out." "He knew I'd end up part of the family. Before I even knew it myself." Riley sat beside him on the workbench. "Maybe that's what families do. They see who you're supposed to be before you figure it out yourself." Marcus folded the letter carefully and tucked it into his shirt pocket, right over his heart. "Keep it there," Riley said, "so you never forget where you belong." And he never did. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.